The Icebrood Saga Episode Champions Part Truce just arrived, and it's been met with not the most positive reception, from myself included. And I think a lot of people probably think I'm a raging dervish of elitism right now, thanks to a certain clip that got pretty popular on the subreddit.
ArenaNet, if you're listening to this, you are going to get demolished.
And while it's true I don't think dragon response missions are particularly well executed, I really think they're a pretty good idea at heart. However, talking about dragon response missions isn't the point of this video, it's far more meta than that. So I'll just leave some notes about the missions on the screen that give you my general thoughts on them for now. I might revisit DRMs in another video or on stream, so come and bother me about them there. For now, let's get to the point. The community is up in arms and full of doom and gloom, but should we truly despair? I don't think so. The first release of the ending of the Icebrood Saga was very short indeed. It looks like the finale has essentially been split over 4 episodes. The ultimate ending will probably include significantly more meat, possibly a map, and certainly some boss fighting, cutscene action, and a healthy dose of expansion teaser, but up until things start heating up, I think it's likely the actual content releases will be roughly the same. You might think that sounds bad, but I would argue the contrary. This suggests to me that ArenaNet is pretty much all guns blazing on the expansion, which is not only the best for the game's future, but also the best in the long term for us, the players. Let me explain. It means that we do have to be patient and deal with a semi-content drought until the expansion, but our patience should hopefully be rewarded with a polished and feature-rich expansion. Now, I know we've heard that one before, but what can I say? I'm an optimist. But it's not just optimism I'm thinking about here. Guild Wars 2 has certainly arrived at meme status in the MMO sphere, perhaps deserved after a fraught history and questionable design decisions, but still very much unreflective of the quality of the game in my opinion. But sadly, no amount of living story is going to fix that. The type of content that ArenaNet is able to create while also grinding an expansion just isn't going to blow players away. An expansion though is where things can change. It's a big event, a huge drop of content, and can be a turning point in the game's trajectory for better or for worse, and is ArenaNet's opportunity to demonstrate that, contrary to popular opinion, Guild Wars 2 actually isn't dead. To further back up why I think focusing almost entirely on the expansion is correct, I'd also draw attention to the fact that although dragon response missions don't satisfy the masses, it's not like the last patches were either. Certainly my lot aren't exactly big fans of single-player story and open-world conveyor belts, and the community at large was also highly critical of Drizzlewood Coast, despite it being quite the cinematic marvel. At the end of the day, I think we all agree ArenaNet needs a change of strategy, and I think they want to go for that. They're experimenting with some stuff right now and seeing what works and what doesn't for implementation in the expansion and beyond. Worst case scenario, we pretty much just get the same old, but the best case is we get an epic revival of the game in a glorious expansion, raising Guild Wars 2 to its rightful place. That might not completely happen, but I genuinely believe the best possible thing for the game and us is that this expansion is as big a success as possible, and that it's worth waiting a bit now to really push the game into the spotlight. Better to have a lack of content and a bright future than a mediocre future in exchange for some unsatisfying scraps immediately. I'd bite this bullet all the way, and I would rather have 0 content releases between now and the expansion rather than have a rushed, unfinished expansion but get bigger living story releases. Such is the power of an expansion in a game literally marketed around players quitting and coming back, and ArenaNet definitely know that. I'm not going to let ArenaNet off that easily though. I think it's key we see one fundamental change in their tactics, that of iteration. We've seen far too many game modes left to rot, even though the fundamental concept behind them is sound. PvP, world versus world raids, fractals and strikes all fall into that category to an extent, but with refinement they could be made more accessible, marketable and worthwhile for ArenaNet, and hopefully we see some of that in the expansion. It's imperative that in addition to story, the game brings in some new engaging maps and hopefully repeatable instance content. World of Warcraft just released Shadowlands, and after watching a few playthroughs, both hardcore and more casual, I was actually surprised at how well even Path of Fire compares to a baseline WoW expansion. In fact, I would say Path of Fire shipped with more content than Shadowlands in terms of story. Of course, that's ignoring the minor addition of 8 dungeons with multiple difficulty settings, a brand new roguelike dungeon crawler mode, and of course a 10 boss raid coming within a month or two, but you get the point. Throw some strikes into the mix on launch, maybe a tough world boss and a raid encounter, and then Guild Wars 2 can absolutely compete in this environment. Especially considering that 9 new elite specializations changed the game significantly more than the typical class reshuffle in other MMOs such as WoW. To return to this idea of unrealized potential and lack of iteration, just take a look at what we already have. Raids in Guild Wars 2 are genuinely brilliant, but lack an easy mode and so are inaccessible to most players in the game. Strikes suffer from being a weird middle ground of being too hard for inexperienced players but far too easy for veterans. PvP and World vs. World are, well, just misunderstood and unloved children. You get the point though. If ArenaNet iterated on their design and developed content, then these game modes are more than a match for the competition. Don't take my word for it, ask Blizzard. They borrowed fractals almost identically, and it became Mythic Plus in Legion, one of WoW's most popular attractions, and also ended up as a bit of an esport, funnily enough. They even added open world group events and bosses called World Quests. It's almost like ArenaNet have some bright ideas from time to time. And that underlines why I'm not concerned about the recent release, and why we should be feeling confident about the future, because if ArenaNet is doing what I think they're trying to do, we could be in business again. And if not, don't worry, I'll be the first in line to complain about it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.